Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Stories That Inspire Us / the author series. My name is Janice Malillo, your host. And of course, we were expecting to go live on the stories page, but this is, I always say, the beauty of live podcasting. That wasn't able to happen, but we are recording live through the Wisdom Audio app. So I want to thank all of my amazing listeners. And thank you so much for being here this evening. I have an amazing guest on this evening. When I received her, well, let me back up a little bit. When I first met Hope, the rawness of her story and the dignity and grace that she gave to not only herself, but to the love and memory of her son, Justin. I want to welcome to the Stories podcast my new friend, the author of the book Grief to Hope, a mother's memoir of devastation to determination, and the founder of the Grief to Hope group virtual group to help parents or even someone who's lost a loved one. Welcome, Hope Reger, to the Stories podcast. I'm so excited to have you here and for you to share your story and Justin's story.
Thank you so much. That was a beautiful intro. I couldn't have done it better, but thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
Well, thank you. When we met, as I said, when I heard your story, and we have a mutual friend, Paul Forcione, and I know that he was eager to watch this on the Stories page, Facebook page. He told me, you need to meet a really good friend of mine. Didn't tell me too much. But then I met you through his networking group, and you were the guest speaker that evening. And I was struck by the hope that you, Hope, gave to your mission of grief to hope. And you dedicated your book to your son, Justin, a handsome young man, forever 19. But it was 5 seconds that changed not only your life, but your family's life forever.
Absolutely.
Would you like to share with our audience what transpired?
Sure, absolutely. So it was November 17th, 2016. I heard a knock at the door, and at the time, I had moved from a small hometown that I lived in outside of Dayton, Ohio, to a major city, Columbus, Ohio, for my job. My oldest son, Brian, had started his family and his life. I was going through a divorce at the time. And Justin, my youngest son, was 18, going on 19. And so I thought this was a great new start for us. I was with the same company, but changing roles. And so I moved about an hour and a half, 2 hours away. And Justin at the time was sort of in between, as 18-year-olds do, the friends, the mom, the friends, the mom. When it came to no money and needed a place to crash, it was mom's house. When he had got his paycheck from work, it was friend's house. So it just really depended on where he was. And Justin was carefree, and he was just awesome, always living on the edge kind of person. And he was an amazing, amazing individual. But I had received a knock at the door, and they had I was looking down from my condo window, and the police were there, and they were waving me to come down. And my first thought is, as a mother of 2 boys, is that, oh Lord, what have they gotten into, right? Like nothing tragic happened, or it crossed my mind. It was basically like, Justin had gotten in trouble. He forgot my cell phone number, that kind of thing. So when I answered the door, they asked me if I was Justin's mom, and I absolutely said yes. And then I again thought, what did he do? and they handed me a piece of paper with a name and number on it. And that name and number I was not familiar with. However, the area code was my hometown. So again, he had been staying he had gotten into a place with roommates in September of that year. So he was super excited, was moving out on his own, was living with these roommates. And so I basically asked them, I said, do you know what this is about? And they're like, no, but you need to get a hold of that person. It's urgent. So I went upstairs, dialed the number, thinking at 6:30 in the morning, nobody would answer. And the person on the other line answered Greene County Coroner. And when they answered Greene County Coroner, I assumed this was the only person working 24 hours a day, that I had just dialed a county office, right? This is literally running through these 3 seconds, of their answering, that I had dialed the wrong number, or they're the only person answering at 6:30 in the morning. And it just, to me, I was like, I think I have the wrong number. And he said, Hope. And I said to myself, how does he know my name, right? And I said, yes. And he said, you're Justin's mom. Yes. And he proceeded to tell me that Justin had gotten into an altercation with his roommate. It was a verbal altercation that started as an argument that led to physical fighting, where they were punching, shoving, pushing. And then it had ended up in violence, where the roommate had pulled a gun, put it to my son's chest, and shot and killed him. Now, Justin didn't have any kind of weapons of any kind, and that'll take part later, but he was arrested that night for murder. And this was at 1:30 in the morning, and this was literally 6:30 that next morning. So as a mother, to hear that over the phone, you are in complete shock, overwhelmed, disbelief. And that moment in time shaped me for the rest of my life after that.
No doubt, it absolutely changed the whole trajectory. The whole outlook of your life, the whole outlook of your family's life. And I can't even fathom, as you mentioned, that state of shock, that state of disbelief, like what the hell is happening?
Oh yeah.
And I would think that it made like no sense.
You literally, you sort of go, and I tell people all the time, like when something like this happens, and I never dealt with any kind of traumatic or trauma or anything in my life. I've dealt with grief, my grandparents or aunt and uncle, those kind of things, but nothing tragic and so, shockingly in your face kind of reaction that you take. My body started autopilot, and it wouldn't allow me to sort of feel the way that normal people would think you would feel. It's sort of the horror. Then you start going into, what bothered me the most was I was a mother that I couldn't fix something that was broken with my son. And so I kept asking the person, the coroner, where is he at? Like, I felt like if I knew where he was at and I could get to him, I could fix it, right? And so as a parent, you're automatically going, okay, I can fix this. Nothing is that bad I can't fix. And then it rushes over you. He's alone, and he's in a dark place, and he's all cold, and I can't take care of him. And so there's so many emotions that you're running through at that exact moment. Then that autopilot starts to kick in, because we lived in a small town and the news had already started. So it wasn't that they had his name, but they had his location Everybody knew where he lived. It was a 19-year-old male. So I was afraid that my family would start to feel and hear all that news and put two and two together without me. So then I start going on autopilot of calling. And of course, the first person I had to call was his brother. And just the screams, the questions, I didn't have any answers. And I literally would tell the story over and over again and say, I don't know why. I don't know what happened. I don't know why. I don't know. This is what I do know. And that was probably, besides the funeral, the hardest, is to tell your family the worst possible news they could hear.
And absorbing that information as a mom, transcribing or communicating that message to first your son Brian and then to the rest of your family, and it's an untypical situation and not a normal thing for a parent to be shocked by all of that.
Right. And over those next hours and days, the amount of emotion and surprise that you go through is inconceivable. And that is why I talk about grief to this day. One of the reasons is there are so many things that happen within that first week that, unless you've gone through some sort of funeral service or I got a call from an organ donor. Bless her heart, the person that has that job, she's in a hurry. She's wanting to get all these information. I was not prepared for that call. I was not prepared for not being able to see Justin. He was in a morgue because of the investigation. I could not get to him until the funeral home picked Justin up. So I'm thinking it's just breaking my heart that he's in this cold, lonely place and I can't see him. But it's almost like a business transaction with the funeral home. Like they're like, okay, you need $10,000 and we'll go pick him up and this and that. And it literally, now I had insurance and I had savings and all that, but I don't have $10,000 to run out today and get it. And so then I was panicking. And that all I wanted to do was to see Justin. And it was a day or two later that the funeral home that I did get with they were amazing. They were so amazing and so comforting. And it wasn't like a business transaction. And I'll always, always be grateful for them. But I didn't see Justin for at least 48 hours. And so your mind doesn't really comprehend what's going on without seeing it. So after everything was, they went and they got Justin, they called me and they said, we're ready. If you want to come see him and plan the services, those services, you aren't aware of what you need, where you're going, what you're doing. I had a slew of people with me, but it was still so overwhelming. The pictures, the songs, just everything that you've got to get ready. And then, you got to plan where you want to bury him and then how the casket looks. And it is so overwhelming that you do not have, for me, the emotional capacity to do anything but function, right? And that's why I tell people it was autopilot, it was functioning, it was almost like the emotions were there, but like I had to put them on a shelf when I'm going through certain, like, okay, the organ donor called, or I got to get pictures together, or I got to go, plan for, to talk to the pastor. And I had to put, like, I was constantly, I felt putting my emotions on the shelf, right? And so finally came to the day where I actually got to see Justin. And so nothing seemed real till this moment in time where I literally got done with all the planning, and the beautiful lady at the funeral home said, "Are you ready to see Justin?" And I, of course, said yes, but I was not prepared for this. And literally, my emotions take over every time I talk about this, but I remember walking down this really long hallway, and it probably wasn't very long, but she opened up a room and asked me, just to let her know when the other family could come in, but take my time. And I remember this room may have not been that horror, not long at all, but it felt like miles. And I walked into that room and I saw my son laying there on a hospital bed with just a sheet. And I remember thinking, for the very first time, he's not coming back. And when I walked up to him and touched him, all the warmth of him was gone. And that's when life started to finally hit and reality started to hit. And then, of course, emotionally, I was able to let go some of that emotion and feeling and just screaming, I was so sorry that I couldn't protect him, and I was so sorry that this happened to him and I wasn't there for him, and that he had to go through this horrific thing alone. And that was probably the first time that it really felt like this was real.
And in that real moment, up to that point, as you mentioned, you were just going through the process. You were functioning as best as you could and kind of putting your feelings aside just to get through what you needed to get through. I can't even fathom that hope, and to go through that process as a parent, to know that, but you were always there. I just feel in my heart, he knows that you were there for him.
Absolutely. It's taken me a long time to get through the what ifs that we all do. If you've lost anybody and there's a circumstance where, what if you would have called, or what if I wouldn't have moved to Columbus, what if I would have, and one of the greatest things that I learned was free will, and that he called that evening, the night before, or when this happened, he called, and I was on my way to movies with a friend, and I didn't pick up. And I thought to myself, if it's urgent, he'll keep calling if he needs money, or whatever, as parents do. And I was like, I'll call him back, or if it's urgent, he'll keep calling. And he always kept calling. If it was like he was stuck somewhere, he didn't stop calling, right? And he only called that one time. And I had so much guilt that I did not pick up the phone or did not call him back after I got out of the movies. He didn't leave a voicemail or anything. But one of the greatest things that I learned was free will, is that, what if I would have answered that phone? What if we would have argued? What if we would have said things that, and normally we never did, but what if things would have went bad? Or what if I would have said things that I regretted, it not in that way? So it takes a long time to get to where you forgive yourself, and put yourself, like, I always thought if I didn't move to Columbus, he would still be here. If I didn't do this, if I didn't do that. But then, there's free will, and everything has reaction to your action. There's a reaction. So if I wouldn't have moved to Columbus, what if something, you just never know. And I can't answer that question, and nobody can answer that question. And so instead of me driving myself just completely insane, I have to understand that I did the best that I could at that time.
Right. And with not knowing what the future held. And as you mentioned, if it was, if he kept calling, you went to the movies, of course you would have called him back,
Right.
or whatever, or he would have left you a message. But I think what you said about the what ifs and the free will, it's that emotional trauma. It's like a circle. It has no end, and it's just circling back and forth and back and forth. But you worked through that in your due time and in your due experience for grieving. Nobody can tell you how to grieve or how long should it take. And to lose your son in the fashion in which it happened, it takes on a whole new meaning of grieving. And of course, we've all lost loved ones. We've all grieved for people that have, made such an impact in our lives. But I really do think you, as a mom, still honored that relationship with your son, but also for yourself.
Yeah, I do. I love that. And it takes a long time, and I'm still grieving, right? 6 years later, I'm still grieving. But one of the greatest gifts, if you can call it a gift from grief, which I do, is that several months after this, and as you know, the person was arrested for murder. He was arraigned, bonded out by his parents. And later on, it went to grand jury. And if you don't know much about trials or whatever, but a grand jury basically decides if it's going to trial. So if it's going to trial, like, they have enough evidence to indict him. And I was assured by the victim advocate that was assigned to me, no problem. He completely admitted that he shot and killed Justin. Justin didn't have any weapons. It was, clear shut case. And so when it went to grand jury to decide to indict him, literally his lawyer pled or fought self-defense. And so he was let go and never arraigned for my son's murder. So as a mother, I felt like I wasn't protecting him, right? And I had all these what ifs. And then several months later, here, I can't give my son justice. Like, the person that took his life is not going to pay for it. The person that took his life and all that he had, marriage, family, career, everything that he could have accomplished, this one person decided to take his life and is not going to be held accountable for it. So then I was like, okay, I'm angry as hell, right? I'm angry that this happened. I'm angry at the justice system. I'm angry at God. I'm angry at every single person on this earth. I am hateful. I am revengeful. And I am the complete opposite to every single thing that I am as a person. Before this happened, I was hope, sunshine, roses, positive, butterflies, everything was good. My life, no matter what happened, I was always like, oh, the glass is half full kind of thing. And here I was stuck in this position of hate and revenge and anger. And I didn't know what the hell I was going to do. And literally, as I was leaving the prosecutor's office, after they told me that the person that took my son's life would not be held accountable, I was devastated, to say the least, right?
Right. Rightfully so.
Right. So here I am. Okay, Hope, just go to bed, not get up. Just go to bed, be angry, be hateful. Nobody's going to question that. Not one person would say, Hope, come on, you lost your son, but get out of bed. Not one person would say, keep fighting. They would say, we understand. We get it, right? Not one person would argue with that I was mad and hateful and pissed off. Everybody would understand. But I could not do that to my son in the way that he lived, in the way that I needed to honor him for the way that he lives. And so it took every ounce of fight in me, which I have. And I've learned and I've gained strength beyond an unimaginable experience. Like, I don't even know where this comes from sometimes. But the strength and courage that I got from saying, okay, Hope, what are you going to do now? What are you going to do to honor Justin? What are you going to do to make his life worth meaning? Not the way that he passed, not the way that he died, but the way that he lived. And that is the strength and the courage that I gained from all of this to say, I can't sit here and dwell on this hatred and this hatefulness and this anger, because he doesn't care. The person that took my son's life does not care about what Hope's doing. He could care less what I'm doing. And hopefully, he does think about what he did to Justin, but I don't know. And I can't ever learn or want to know or figure it out. I have to start being productive in what means something to my son in the way that he lives. And so that's the start of my fight. And it was literally every day getting up with a why. Like, okay, today I'm going to quit smoking. And literally I put down cigarettes and quit smoking. Today I'm going to start exercising. Today I'm going to start being kind. Today I'm going to start. Every single day I had a why. And to this day, I still have that why. And it changes and it evolves. But over several years, and especially when COVID hit, I found the why in grief. And that's when it became Grief to Hope. And that's how all that Grief to Hope came about, was years of saying, I need a why, I need a purpose, I need to figure this out. And so having that inspiration every single day gets me out of bed and helps me move forward.
And Hope, that is really very beautiful and in a poignant kind of way, because through your grief, you found the strength and courage, the meaning of the why, in a way to honor your son, that you knew he would be honored that you were doing it for him.
Absolutely. And when I make it to heaven one day, I hope he's like, Mom, you go, girl. Or he's like, you embarrassed me to death. But, either way. No, I think Grief to Hope is, it started with COVID. And in 2020, we had that. So as the years, I've always wanted to write a book or speak, or, I joined a couple of grief groups and I've talked. And so, but I just didn't know where it all fit and what I wanted to do. And then when COVID hit, literally we were locked down. Death had a whole nother level to it. And when I say that, it is like we were counting deaths on TV. People were dropping their loved ones off at hospitals and not seeing them again, or saying their last goodbyes on the phone, or not having funeral arrangements. And all I kept on thinking was, how would I have done it with Justin if that was the circumstance? Like, I don't know. That's a whole nother layer upon death and grief and dying. And so when that happened, I knew I had to do something, but I didn't know what. And so it came to me when we were all Zooming, because I work a day job, and we were all on Zoom, and I said, that's it. I will have people come and talk in a group setting virtually on Zoom that we're all getting familiar with about their grief, and they don't have to leave their house. They can come in their pajamas, they can drink coffee, they can drink wine. We can just have this open conversation and be there for each other, right? And so I put pen to paper and I prayed, and the words for the 7-week program sort of blossomed out of that, and Grief to Hope was born. Our first program was in October of 2020.
That is amazing what you just said. Pen to paper, and out of your grief, in the midst of honoring your son, coming up with a 7-week program. Can you tell us a little bit more about your program? Because I think it's just, I'm flabbergasted on how this evolved for you in such an amazing, dignified way to not only honor your son, honor your journey as a parent, but to honor those who were suffering on so many other different levels, to share, meet virtually and share their grief in such a way where they felt listened to. We can all hear, but the listening aspect of what people are going through, their emotions, to share that in such a dignified manner, I mean, that is amazing.
Absolutely. I don't know where all this inspiration come from besides God. Like, I asked God, I prayed God, and I'm very uneducated when it comes to God. But I believe that we all have a gift. No matter how big, how small that gift is, we have it. We have it in us. And it's those things that come easy to us. Literally, I think is the gifts. But Grief to Hope is basically a 7-week program. It's free. I get it. You can come. It's absolutely free. There's no cost. And it's 7 weeks. And the first week is an introduction week. And it's basically just like I've done here. I've told my story in a little more detail. I talk about the program. I allow others to share their stories if they're comfortable. Nobody is required to talk. Nobody's even required to be on camera if they don't feel comfortable. But they share their stories if they're wanting to. And everybody has a story. And everybody's story may resonate with somebody within that group or within another person. So I tell people, just because your story may not, you feel, resonate with somebody else, it will touch somebody. I promise you, it will touch somebody. And so we end with a quote. And then the next 2 to 6 weeks, we spell out the word grief. So G is for gift of time. So our main conversation for that discussion is gift of time. Like, how does time help? How does time change things? How does time evolve your grief? But also, how do people rush you? How do people like push you along in that grief? So there's the good and bad to time. And so then G's gift of time, R is receive help. And that is where we talk about, how do you ask for help? How did you receive help? One of the greatest things is that we've uncovered is when you're in the midst of grieving the first couple of weeks, it is crucial to find a trusted person that you can go to give a list of things that you need. Because you'll get that question, how can I help? If you need anything, let me know. And we literally don't know. So when you find that trusted person that say, if I could have somebody take the dog for a walk or pick up the dog food or take my kids to school or whatever, change my furnace filters, whatever that may be, that is just really, really crucial in the first couple of weeks of grieving. But as well as it brings awareness. So if you have somebody that you know that's going through grieving, it brings that awareness to you to say, instead of saying, if you need anything, let me know, but say, can I bring you dinner Friday? Can I walk your dog? Can I take, the kids for 2 hours on Friday? Those are much better questions than, if you need anything, let me know, because we all do it. And then I is for inspiration, which I talked about. You have got to find something that inspires you on a day-to-day mission. And that may be big, small, get out of bed, take a shower, go through their things, whatever that is, that inspiration. Write a book. It could be something as big as that. It could be start a support group. Or it could be, I just want to listen to a song, or whatever that, it's that inspiration, find that who or that what that inspires you and focus on that. And then E is expectations. We talk about people expectations. Men and women have different expectations of grief. People expect different things from men and women. What did you expect from your grief that you had no idea? Or what you didn't expect? What surprised you about it? One of the things that was like I had this brain fog, and I couldn't figure out why I couldn't concentrate until somebody had told me it's called brain grief fog. So we talk about expectations, and F is feel everything. And that is one of my favorite sessions because it's all about feelings. And we talk about our loved ones like you and I are having a conversation. We share memories, we share stories, we share pictures. I love it when they bring their pictures. They're very excited to showcase them on camera. Clothes, pictures, what they love on their pizza, what TV shows. It's all about saying their name and feeling them. Has sort of morphed into feel everything. And then our final session is called To Hope. And that's exactly what it is. What is your next step in the 90 days? What's your next step moving forward? Big, small, little. What do you want to accomplish within a certain amount of time to have that goal? And what happens is when you have a goal and you accomplish it, you find the strength and courage that you never knew existed. And that's what happened to me. Literally, I was like, okay, I'm going to quit smoking. And I said it sort of nonchalant. I was like, tomorrow's the day. But when I did it and accomplished it, I was like, whoa, where did that come from? And the power of that mindset of like, you can accomplish that, then it starts getting you into that feeling of, okay, I can accomplish something else. But what it also does is if the next day you don't accomplish what you got your mindset for, that you have the power to know that was just a lesson, and that you can get up the next day and keep moving forward and try it again. And that's where there's no failures, that saying, there's no failures, there's only lessons, is what I try to embed in all of the people that join me. Is like, we're going to have bad days, guys. We're going to have anniversaries. We're going to have those birthdays. We're going to have those smells, those triggers. But what we have to do is embrace that and let it be for that day, not that week, not that month, not for years, that day or that morning. And then go back into, okay, tomorrow is going to be different. This is what I'm going to focus on. Is it a lot of work? Yes. Yes, it is a lot of work, but man, is it worth it. It is so worth the thought that I have that I can get up and I have courage and strength and have gone through the worst imaginable pain of a mother is it's incredible. The strength and just your mindset, like it doesn't even, it's hard for me to even grasp. It's hard for me to grasp that I've gone through this and that I'm coming out with this powerful message, but it's true and you can have it and not feel guilty about it either. That's the biggest thing. I don't want anybody to feel guilty about being happy again, having joy again, experiencing life again. Because let me tell you, if they were here, they would tell you they're your biggest fan. They want you to succeed. They want you to be happy. They wouldn't want you to be, upset and angry and hateful and mean and regret and revenge. Justin would be devastated if I lived that way because that wasn't me. And so in honoring him by creating this new version 2.0 of hope, which is what I call it, it's the most amazing experience.
You described that so eloquently, but I do want to point out, yes, it was a powerful message, something that you created for your love and the honor of your son. And you even talk at one point in your book, um, I'm just going to come out and say the name of the chapter because it's so. I really felt your son's presence when I was reading this chapter. Just be kind.
Absolutely. That is the whole, and the story behind that is when I was coming home one night and I was screaming at the top of my lungs, what do you want from me? Why did you take, and I'm yelling at God, why did you take Justin? What do you want from me? I mean, how can I help you, right? And you took my son. There's murderers, there's rapists, there's these ugly people out here, and you took this 19-year-old kid who had his whole life ahead of him that lived to make people laugh. Why? And I heard the words, just be kind. I don't know if it was on the radio, in my head, God himself, I don't know. Like I said, I'm very uneducated when it comes to Christianity and religion and all that, but I believe in the things that I hear and see. And when I found out that just be kind wasn't just about other people, it was about hope. I had to be kind to myself on top of that. And to learn the evolution of that. And I heard that, right in the midst of this anger and hateful and revengeful thinking, to hear someone say, just be kind. At first, I was like, I'm kind, I'm nice, I say thank you, I tell people have a good day. And the crazy thing is, right after that happened, I believe in signs. I was going through the drive-through thinking I'm going to pay it forward, and this is in my book as well. And I pull up to this coffee shop, and it was a Tim Hortons. I don't know if everybody has Tim Hortons, but there's only one window. So I was thinking, okay, how easy is this? I could pay and like book it, right? And I had never paid it forward before. And so I was like, I want to pay for the guy behind me. And I looked over, and I'm not kidding you, the cashier's name was Justin.
Oh my God.
And I literally was bawling. Like the ironic, I mean, it was just so ironic that this was my first time and I had just heard this, just be kind. And then I laugh about it now because I'm like, God better make me rich because I can't pay for everybody. But I mean, of course, I think it was meant to say that kindness comes in so many different ways and forms. And paying it forward is great, and saying compliments and volunteering and sharing. But being kind to ourselves, wow, that's hard work. It's hard work, but you've got to do it when you're grieving. You've got to.
Yeah, and in kindness and paying it forward, I've often said, we have to be gentle and kind to ourselves, no matter what kind of situation we are in, but even more so through the grieving process. And again, there are no, we are not experts in this field. We are only experts in what we've lived through. But I do think that grief is very individualized.
Oh, yes. It is as individual as a snowflake or a fingerprint. And I say this as well because when I grieve Justin, it's completely different than when I grieve my grandmother. So even though I'm still that griever, there's different individualized ways that I grieve. So you may grieve somebody different, your grandparent or your mother or your father, or your spouse. will be great. You'll grieve them different than a child, or any kind of like aunt, uncle. Every time you grieve, it's going to be different. That's been my perspective, and I'll tell you that one of the greatest things you can give to yourself when you're grieving is the patience to know that there is no wrong or right way to grieve. And I had to learn that, because I remember being a mother and thinking if I laughed or smiled at something months after Justin passed, that would reflect me as a parent, like I'm grieving wrong, or I'm not grieving right, or if I didn't go through these 5 stages that they have, and I just want people to understand that grieving is so individualized, so different, and every single person that you grieve is different, and you're going to have different reactions for different uh, phases within that grief.
That is so true. And, the other thing that I loved about your book is toward the end, you, excuse me, you go through and you give 52 weekly inspirational quotes. And, as I was reading through this, is it all right if I read one of them with you?
Absolutely.
Sometimes hope is all we have. Most of the time, it is all we need.
Absolutely.
It's pretty powerful.
I love, I was challenged at the beginning of Grief to Hope. I was like, hey, I'm going to make new quotes for every session. And then one of the gentlemen that joined me, he was like, hey, are these going to be the same quotes as last time? Because you can come and join as many as often as you want. And I said, no, I think I'll create some more. And so I have developed and I've created over 100 quotes that are just incredible. And I have some specials. I love day 1 or 1 day. That's probably my most powerful one. I say a lot. And grief can change your world. I can inspire you to change the world. And grief can hide your hope or guide your hope. There's so many. It's just you need that inspiration, and that's one of the things I've been falling in love with, is creating these quotes, and it comes, and I'm just grateful for it.
And I am grateful for how you wrote this book and why you wrote this book. But I do have a very specific question for you. What do you think is on the horizon when you think of investing in hope, whether through your inspirational quotes or next book, or maybe another program?
I love that question, and I'm currently working on a workbook to coincide with my program. So basically, it'll be a digital download that you can put, and you can journal, you can notes, we can discuss each session. And so I am finishing up doing the workbook now, and that'll be on my website. So I'm working on that. And I think one of the biggest things is I just want to share the word and share my story, and hopefully that sparks other people to share stories, so that grief is not this dirty, ugly word that nobody wants to talk about. And I hope that I can frame it in a way that's non-threatening, and that they can look at me as a person that is going through grief, but I'm not consumed by it, and I'm living with it, and I'm functioning with it, and I'm creating something beautiful for the world that grief didn't hold me back from, right? And so I think that's probably my main objective, is to let people know my story, let them know that there's others out here there's help. Oh my gosh. I didn't know how many grief resources there were till after I started becoming a grief resource. And so if you need any kind of help, there's thousands of places that you can go and look, and everybody, just specifically your podcast today, this helps tons of people. And that is what we need. We just need to talk about it and share our stories and share what's going on with us and let people feel like they're not alone in this world within their own grief.
Thank you for sharing that, because I think sometimes when we are going through grief, we may even feel that we are alone, but we are not alone. So thank you for sharing that. I just want to segue over for just a moment to thank all of our amazing listeners currently on the Wisdom audio app. Unfortunately, live podcasting, the connection gods did not want to cooperate, but so appreciate everyone on Wisdom being here. Hope, do you have a couple more minutes? Maybe we can invite one of our guests to, maybe if they have a question for you, or maybe contribute to the conversation.
I would love that.
Okay, Wisdom. Excuse me, we have time for one guest to come up. If you'd like to ask Hope a question, or maybe you would like to contribute to the conversation, perhaps you may want to share your thoughts on grief, maybe something that you have been through. We invite you to come up on stage. We have time for one guest. Hope, as we are waiting for hopefully somebody to come up on stage, you had mentioned grief resources, and you at one point, excuse me, in your book, you had mentioned that you even Googled what the norm is for grieving.
The average grief time is what I Googled, because I was hearing from so many people, like they're like, hey, they're giving me like 6 months and they want me back to normal, or a year. And so I said, is there a time frame? Like, what's the time frame? And so I Googled the grief, the average grief, and it was 2 years. And I thought to myself, wow, am I behind? And then I realized that whoever wrote that one hasn't ever grieved, probably. But grief never ends. It's never concluded. It's never closed. But you learn to live with your grief in a way that can be powerful. And like I said, just draw courage and strength from. So there's so many resources out there, but yes, I did Google that, and it was 2 years. And so, you can Google anything.
It's so true, and we won't say that name too loud, because I do have the NEST over there in the corner. And every now and then that bitch likes to show her. Anyways, those are my issues, not anybody else's, of course. Oh my goodness, Hope, I want to show your book again. And I know our listeners on Wisdom can't see this, but this is Hope's book, Grief to Hope. And I want to show this picture, amazing picture of your son. Justin, we honor you. We honor your mom. Thank you so much for being here today to share your story, to share your courage and your strength to inspire others who may be going through a similar situation or going through grief in general. There is no time frame. It's how you need to work through it is up to you. There's no perceived time limit. So please don't feel like you have to limit yourself. Hope, I hope you will, excuse me, definitely consider coming back to the Stories That Inspire Us podcast. I think we've only really scratched the surface. Thank you from the bottom of my heart.
You're such a beautiful person. Thank you for having me. It's been my absolute pleasure to be here.
Oh my goodness, it has been my pleasure. Thank you for sharing your story and Justin's story. It's always difficult to talk about grief, and even more so for a parent who has lost their child due to a senseless act of how he was taken away from this lifetime. And as we continue to mourn those we loved and lost, know that you do have the courage and strength. Thank you again, Hope. Remember, if you have a story to share, chances are it is that important for you to tell it. My name is Janice Malillo, the host of Stories That Inspire Us, the author series. Oh my goodness, can't wait to have Hope back on. Goodbye for now, everyone. Thank you so much, and we'll see you again real soon.